A lot of emerging managers that come out of larger institutions and are looking to set up their first fund, mostly what they're focusing on is strategy and fundraising. But a lot of things they need to think about are their own money in terms of having enough money to set up the fund. So there are things like, are you going to hire a CFO immediately? What kind of office space are you going to have? How many employees are you going to bring in? A lot of that is dictated by how much money you have individually to put up to start the fund. A lot of people look at it instead and say, we're going to see how much we can raise and what the management fees are before we do that. But I think that's a little backwards. These managers are used to making deals, and that's basically what they've done. Now they're actually entrepreneurs and running a business. So it's totally different now, things that they have to look at, and they have to have people in place to be able to operate that business properly. So having adequate capital to be able to fund the business is an important piece of that. I think if they can bring in a CFO, and then there are questions depending on the size of the fund and what their long-term goal is. Are they trying to be institutional? In other words, raise a lot of institutional capital, or are they just going after high net worth family office, which may be a little bit different than the institutions. But a CFO would be helpful, and today CFOs do a lot more than just the books for the fund. They're the office manager, they're the HR person, so they handle a lot of that. They're investor relations, so they deal with a lot of that up front, and having that person in place would make it a lot easier for the GP to go and do fundraising and start to look at deals. That should probably be one of the first steps. Besides putting their business plan together, is to get an attorney. And you really want an attorney that's knowledgeable in the space and has really done a lot of work in the space. Sometimes they'll use their friends, they'll use a larger law firm that really doesn't do fund formation, and so they're not going to get a lot of good advice in terms of how to structure the fund. And there are varying sizes. There's boutique firms that's what they do. They're smaller, fees are more reasonable, and then there's the larger firms that obviously come with a price. But it depends also what you're looking for. So if you're going to raise a lot of capital, then maybe the larger firm may be better because that brand name may bring in some of the limited partners because they know that's the firm you're using. There's different things you need to look at. So typically the CFO and the GPs will help with the office space. So how large are you going to get? How much space do you need? Do you sublet from somebody you already know has an operation running? Do you do a meet and greet type office, just to meet with your LPs and basically work from home if you're not setting up a large organization? So a lot of things that you need to look at. Also, do you bring in somebody to deal with HR? Because you need manuals for HR. You need to have policies and procedures in place. Or do you outsource that? So there's PEOs, which basically are your outsourced HR function. Payroll comes through them, benefits come through them, all that's handled through them. So you could utilize that, or at some point you need to bring somebody in that would be your head of HR to put all that together. But when you first start, you want to be able to have all those documents in place. And again, we go back to the CFO, and sometimes that's their role, is to get that all in place while you're kind of getting up and running.